Well, hey everybody. This is Jared Malott. I'm here with my good friend Mateo Caliz, and this is the Coltist, episode 41, the Antoine Bethea episode. Antoine Bethea went to Howard, had himself quite the career, by the way. Not only is he a
Yeah,
Super Bowl champion, three-time Pro Bowler, he played for quite a long time, like 13
yeah,
years.
15, yeah, 13, 14 seasons.
Yeah.
Nine of them were with Indy.
Anyway,
Just a great overall safety, a great player to have in the backfield, great leader. I believe he was always among the team captains in the locker room. So that's a guy you really want to have on your roster.
yeah. The this podcast, of course, coming on the heels of the Colts loss. One of the unforgivable sins. The Indianapolis Colts lose on the road to the New England Patriots. Final score 26-3. And man, it's even difficult to assess quarterback play. It's difficult to uh, blame wide receivers when an offensive line plays as just as absolute terrible as it has um, this season. Uh, the Colts now have lost 3 games in a row, haven't scored more than 16 points in any of those three losses.
Yeah,
So certainly an offensive coordinator, Marcus Brady, gets fired. But as we were just kind of talking about here before we started recording this podcast, like how does Chris Strausser still have a job? Like what dirt does Matt Pryor have on Frank Reich that he still gets to play?
yeah,
Where's Chris Ballard in all of this? Dear God, where's Chris Ballard? Like, I hope for Chris Ballard's sake that he's wearing like a mask and obscuring his identity, and he's on the hunt for some talent because the Colts are
yeah.
hurting.
He's been awfully quiet.
Yeah.
I have not heard him talk at all. Especially after looking like, he seemed to me, at least in my opinion, he seemed
Mm,
to give like an arrogant vibe in the off season where he was
mm,
like, yeah, we can build a football team like this, and yeah, we
mm,
know what everyone else is saying, but we don't see it that way.
mhm.
Just kind of cocky, and then it all goes to shit like it has this season. It's not
Yeah.
like you had bad luck with injuries. It's not like
Mm,
we were saying this. We were saying this before the season started. We were saying, how can you be confident in both, Matt Pryor, who has no experience at left tackle, being
mhm,
your left tackle going into the
mhm.
season? What about Danny Pinter, who was the right guard coming in right away? And like you can take those gambles, but when you do so and you don't have like no backup plan at all in case that fails, that's what happens,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the defense has been amazing. No, nothing bad to say about the defense. They played an amazing game today once again.
Definitely earn their paycheck. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, just like every single game this season, that like at least perhaps the only game I can think that they were not good was against the
Jacksonville.
Jaguars in
Mhm.
in, in Duval. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, they've been amazing. And the offense, it's just like it somehow gets even worse each week where you're like, okay, it seriously can get worse than this, and yet it does.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
it goes, nobody's ever 100%, right? Least of all your offensive linemen who should be, I say this, should be engaged every play, right? So offensive linemen should be dinged up the longer your team goes, especially if you're a running football team, you're trying to run the football. Those offensive linemen are engaged and getting their feet moving downfield. They're getting their bumps and their bruises. But here's the thing: the Colts' offensive line's not banged up, none. They're healthy, and I think that's part of their problem is that they're trying to save themselves. Is what's happening here. Like defensively, it's like you've said. They're out there, that scheme's working, they're executing, they're holding people to field goals at best. It's like we were talking about before the podcast. Really the Colts offense and special teams gave up 12 points, uh,
yeah,
or 14 points.
yeah,
And really,
14, yeah,
really, the
14.
really the Colts defense really only allowed 4 field goals, otherwise, right? On and if you think about, obviously the Colts only scored 3 points today, but um, a lot of people are going to blame. A lot of people are going to misplace blame here, and I think very squarely this blame belongs to Chris Ballard. and Frank Reich, 1 and 2. And then
Yeah.
if you're blaming anybody outside of that, it's Strausser, the offensive line coach. And then if you want to get into talking poorly about people, players, something's wrong along the offensive line. Like they just don't want to block for anyone, like not at
Yeah,
all.
just
They don't want to be here at all. Like it's just that's the kind of like no effort, giving up on plays real easy, uh getting blown off the ball. You know what I mean? Like it just their head's not in it. But it's not just there was a thing I saw Quentin Nelson flop today.
yeah, well, yeah.
And
He's
I
not
just
been
thought
having a great season overall.
that's a all pro guard. Like wow. And I get it. A lot of people are going to say, hey, Jared, the Colts were without Jonathan Taylor. It's going to be hard to run the football. I could also point to the Colts play calling and what they've decided to do. I honestly felt like the Colts were tanking
Yeah, it felt like it.
the second possession in a row where the Colts opened a series run. And it was just a handoff to Deion Jackson up the middle. And I thought there was 4 carries right there for less than 10 yards, followed by a failure to convert on a very third and very long. 3rd and 7 or longer, I think, is the where those two particular possessions wound up for the Colts. And I thought, yeah, the Colts are losing. You lose games where your play calling, like what ends up happening, it may not be what was called out there, but the Colts aren't able to protect Sam Ellinger long enough for him to go through his reads. Um, I'd argue
Yeah.
he barely has enough time to get the ball to the first read. And so even when he's trying to check down, he doesn't have enough time to even do that. That's how much pressure the offensive line's just letting. Um, and then there's simple things that defenses are doing, like a stunt where
Yeah,
for a
it gets
moment
home.
the the guard or the player offensive lineman in particular, he looks like there's nobody there, and so he turns his head to go help, and then someone's there. It's like a delayed blitz or like a stunt, like I said. And it's like you didn't know that was like a thing. That's like been a thing in the
And that's when
NFL. You know what I
they've
mean?
been running against you like every single. It's not like the Patriots were the first team to do this. Like teams have been doing this to the Colts all season long,
Yeah.
and they still can't solve it, and it still results in free rushes to the opponent. So you're like, are these coaches really doing their job? Are they, watching the film and saying, okay, we got beat here because we got beat here. We should do this and that and adjust and stuff. They not been doing so. It's like if you run a stunt against Braden Smith and Matt Pryor, you're like 3/4 of the time you're getting a free rusher of the quarterback.
It makes me feel like the Colts have decided we're going to run as low risk of plays as we can, try to keep ourselves in games, give ourselves a chance to score. But ultimately, it looks like, from my perspective, it looks like the Colts are just trying not to get injured. Um, it doesn't appear to be like an effort level consistent with like turning around, right? Because that's one of the things
Yeah,
that we've sort of been noticing with these Frank Reich led teams is that they'll figure it out. They'll turn themselves around. It doesn't feel like that now.
no,
I don't think you have, um, it's not that Sam Ellinger's not a good enough quarterback. It's that I don't think he's going to get a good enough opportunity.
no,
I think that the opportunity here is so poor that it's gonna make Sam Ellinger look much worse than he is. And I get to
yeah,
say that because look at Jacoby looking pretty good in Cleveland. And if you look at PJ Walker, look pretty good when healthy for Carolina. And I get it, Carolina's terrible, but like PJ Walker won when he got a start there. And so
yeah,
you just I always think about the people that leave the Colts and go on and have really good careers or show out elsewhere. Like more specifically, we've talked about it guys like Jerry Hughes. It feels like he's always just like, God damn, he's like a thorn in your side.
We can all also mention Denico Autry, who always goes off against the Colts.
Yeah. And it just
Just
feels like how many of those mistakes do you get to make? Those glaring mistakes, right? Before and so I'm thinking about that, and then I'm thinking about the sort of the play calling, the way that these defensive players are out there playing for their money, right? It wouldn't be a surprise to me. I wouldn't never necessarily say they break up anything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you could very well see coaching general management change here. I really feel
yeah,
like, man, man, it just feels like there is a lack of communication between Jim Irsay and what the general manager and the head coach are putting out on the field. I don't feel like I feel like Chris Ballard relied on him being right as like the first, as like you said, that was his main plan, his game plan, his backup plan was I have to be right.
yeah,
And not sticking to what we said. And that was one of the things I was trying to iterate earlier. I just wanted to get out of there because I was so just, man, I was just so tired, man. It was just like sitting here talking about we lost because we suck, because our game plan's awful, because we've moved from like want to be a run first team and we blew through our running backs and it's like we didn't
yeah,
have anything else we could fucking do. And it's like that's my problem with run first as a game plan. That's not a game plan. That's succumbing to we're gonna have to be try to we're gonna be one dimensional to beat this team. That's what that sounds like an awful lot like to me. This is the NFL. I want to see an NFL offense. I don't care who's that quarterback. Like that guy should be learning how to run an NFL offense. He should be running like a real no shit NFL offense. And the problem too often is he one does not have not enough time at all.
yeah.
And he,
No
he doesn't have
time.
he
Yeah,
doesn't have enough dropbacks to understand when he's in duress and when he just needs to get the fuck out of the way. And that's gonna be his biggest problem. And it's what I've noticed kind of league wide. Because we were talking about like the NFL is just bad right now. A lot of these quarterbacks are lacking spatial awareness, and they're trying to throw, and there's somebody in their throwing motion, or they go to move and they move just too late, and the defender grabs onto them and they go down. And it's like I've noticed it get worse over time where, within the last decade, I feel like quarterbacks could get it one, two, three, get into their drop,
yeah.
throw,
Get the
and
ball up.
and
Yeah,
and and they're not getting hit every fucking time. You know what I mean? Like, and that not on a grand scale, there's maybe like 12, 13 guys in the NFL that I honestly felt like got enough time back there to make some decisions where they're viable quarterbacks in the NFL. And the data kind of backs that up. There's about 12, 13 guys in the league every year that are getting that opportunity. Now, the Colts, without having like a consistent starter year to year at quarterback, if you look at the numbers like backwards a couple of years, like even with Carson Wentz, even with Philip Rivers, like, hey, look at the statistical seasons those quarterbacks had. They certainly weren't the problem, right? And then I don't know what has happened on this offensive line, but it's regression. And then obviously Jonathan Taylor, the league's leading rusher, being going down with an injury is
yeah.
gonna stymie
All season
anyone's
long. Yeah,
offense. But to this degree, um, and obviously with trading away an unhappy Naheem Hines. And if I may, I don't know what happened to him, but I feel like he lost a step. So I'm happy that the Colts got back and a
yeah.
pick
FIFA and pick.
for
Yeah,
in exchange for him. I wish him nothing but best of luck. I hope he wins the Super Bowl for the Bills. Like I hope the Bills go win a Super Bowl and Naheem Hines gets him one because I feel like he's like a good loyal player. Um, and for whatever reason, and so I always think this is curious. Like Marcus Brady got fired, Naheem Hines got traded, and I wonder what happened between those two people. What did those two people do that they got basically
yeah.
one
Scapegoated.
got fired and one got traded away. I wonder if they spoke out. So that's where my head's at in terms of Marcus Brady and Naheem Hines. Did those people get fired because like you say, scapegoated because in a room full of people, what the fuck are we doing? Right? Like I have to wonder, did Naheem Hines get traded because in a room in the running backs meeting, he's going like, look at my quality of touches. I get it that I'm third in touches on the team. Inside handoff, one ball to the
Yeah.
flat. I was the leak in the emergency outlet on this play. Like, is that are these two runs and that leak that you gave me? Are you even considering those quality touches,
Yeah,
or
no,
are
not at
those
all.
like the lowest bar that you could just? We're just doing the least we can for you because that's kind of what that feels like if I'm Naheem Hines, and I'd have problems sitting in a running back room not saying like, hey man, like I get it that I'm just not supposed to think about what happens on the field. I'm supposed to think about the numbers, right? And those numbers are supposed to satiate me because I get paid to play this game. But then when you break it down, but rep by rep, and you're just like, do you not like me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and one thing we've always talked about here, and you're seeing other teams doing it, so I know, and now I know I'm not crazy.
Yeah,
When you have two good running backs, one of them is a speedy guy that you necessarily don't want to hand the ball off to, and the other guy is, you could literally give him the ball, and he's probably going to score. Like, you put
yeah,
him on the field at the same time, and you use motion, and you fake giving it to one guy, and you throw it to the other guy. Like, and the Colts didn't do that, and I feel like that's like hanging in my head like, hey, you had like kind of a duo at running backs and you were trying to develop your wide receivers. And instead of just putting both the backs in the backfield and doing some shit, they like made Naheem Hines go play wide receiver. Like, am I talking out of my behind? And Jared, none of that makes any sense at all. Naheem Hines had a natural career progression, and clearly there's no like unhinged shit going on at Marcus Brady, Frank Reich. Like, how, like, look,
yeah,
watch college football, watch these other successful NFL programs. If they get two speedy players, two backs, they're going to try to pair them up. Look at Miami with Waddle and what's the other receiver's name?
Tyreek,
Huh?
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. And so what they do is they motioned, and I watched the video today. It was like perfect because I'd been thinking about it. Like, I need some hard evidence. I'm not losing my mind. Right. And what do I see? Um, they've got Jalen Waddle lined up on the left side, and keep in mind to his left-handed quarterback, right? So you're going to put your burner to his left,
Yeah,
right? And so he's running the deep ball. He's the outside guy, but he's lined up at the slot. He's like split the difference. He's not out at the numbers anymore, and they're in the middle of the field, just for the picture in your brain. And they send Tyreek Hill full speed, by the way,
yeah,
breaking hard right off of Jalen Waddle's butt as the ball is snapped. He's already at full speed. You can't, by the way, for those wondering, like, why is he describing it like this? You can't guard it. It's impossible to cover because Jalen Waddle can run any route on the tree and he's also going to be open. But then also, you have to cover a full speed Tyreek Hill.
yeah,
Not in the backfield. You can't defend that one on one. So you have to bracket. You have to literally put four people over there to cover two people basically, and then they could do whatever they want off of that because now they have, you know what I mean? You only have seven people for the remaining nine players on the field, right? So it looks really good for Miami. But then if you look, other organizations are doing the same thing. They're taking in San Francisco, McCaffrey and their other back. They're pairing them up. They're trying to make you defend one or the other, right?
yeah,
I know I feel like I'm crazy, but when you watch, you're just like, the Colts don't do that. They seem like they, they seem like they're giving up. And like they're
yeah. Just
on offense, they're just being super safe. And
yeah,
like,
they giving up. Yeah, they giving up on the year, and they just like no will, no passion to play at all. They're just like, okay, let's run it back next year with proper roster and a new head coach. To me, it just seems like that. Like they give him up. They have given up on the year. They're not in it anymore. And you have to start wondering, like, is it because they just can't tolerate Frank anymore? Is it because some guys got paid and just like slacked off right now? I'm thinking about Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly. Are you like, okay, are they just got paid and bail? Or are they just tired of Frank and his coaching method, and they don't trust him at all to deliver, and they just quit on the team, because it just seems like that they
yes,
have no will to play.
I mean, I think you'd see outcomes on the contrary if that's what was if the players believed on the contrary. If they really thought like this is the guy that's going to take us to the promised land, lead us, um, you'd find ways to beat uh Mac Jones.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like this isn't this is a 4-4 Patriots team. This was like a totally beatable team. They already got 4 losses, man.
yeah, and
You know what I mean? Like
the Bears just the Bears managed to at least be productive on offense, and the Bears have much less talent on offense than we do.
yeah.
So
I s- I
I
think
mean,
that when you fire your offensive coordinator, even even if so, I just want to back up and clarify something before I make a fool of myself. Was Frank Reich the play caller the whole time?
I don't know about that, but in my opinion, it kind of seemed like he was like at least he was in charge,
Because
most
whoever
of
did
the
it today
offense.
was terrible. But I mean,
Yeah, and
that wasn't the same play calling as before. So that's the thing. Like what we were doing before, that shit wasn't working, and then what we did today was not it. Um. So okay. So yeah, I maybe they'll hire somebody that seems a lot more likely than anybody getting fired. But yeah, it does kind of feel like when you watch the offense that they're just trying independently. They've decided like we're not trying to get hurt. But yeah,
yeah,
I agree that like I've been saying it for a while. There was this thing on Hard Knocks, and I'll never forget. And it cemented me wanting to be a head coach. Just so you know, because Jesus is just all right with me. You know what I mean? I'm okay. I'm
yeah.
okay. I'm okay with him. But like when I saw Carson Wentz and Frank Reich trading Bible verses, spoken, but not like not in any other way, not like an email or a text message, like in some like in a little quieter fashion. But when they're doing it like from memory, I try to think about like like you're a professional sports coach and you're in charge of like $100+ million roster of football
Yeah,
players. And I think about on the ladder of things that I think are relevant for you to have streaming out of your brain on command. I don't know about you, and I'm getting like worked up thinking about it, but I don't, and I get kind of angry thinking about it too, but like I don't know where Bible verses are on that list for
yeah, they
you,
have.
but
Yeah,
it's really goddamn low. I don't know how else to say that without sounding disrespectful. We are a football coach at the NFL level. I get it if you were at some little Christian high school, some little Catholic high school. I get it if you're teaching, you know what I mean? You're
yeah.
teaching computer science to a bunch of parochial school high school kids. But when you're in the NFL and some of these guys are 100 millionaires, there's no gods. What are you talking about? They are gods. At that level of wealth, you think them kids go to church? Like, come on, bro. We're past that. Jim Irsay is not talking about Jesus. When's the last time you heard Jim Irsay say his name?
Nah, yeah, never.
You ain't never heard him talk about Jesus. So do you think that's what Jim Irsay wants? Because I think
Nah.
if that's what Jim Irsay wanted, he'd be saying his name too. And when you're just a very uh, godly man, I think that Frank Reich would make a fantastic pastor. But when we are talking about the NFL in
Yeah,
2022, post COVID, post Donald Trump, you know what I mean? Like we are living in just a different friggin' world now. Now it's like a real football. It's like life in the bubble. You know what I mean? Like that's what it really is. And I think there's a failure to grasp that at the NFL level by a lot of grown men, particularly like white boys that are getting head coaching opportunities at this level. They don't know how to read the fucking room. And I think you can lose them. I think you can lose them for good, where they don't want to come to fucking work for you no more.
yeah,
And it's real hard to get it. Like I gotta clock in. I'm getting helly paid. And it's not like we're out of it. It's not like the defense is bad. Like the defense is keeping us in fucking games we have no business being in.
yeah,
But I think somewhere along the way, like you hire someone because they're kind. and you don't hire them based on football acumen and willingness to learn and grow. I want to see some PhD. You know what I mean? Like I want to see some analytics, some understanding, some increase of quality of repetition, right? Like as much as you want to get guys going downfield, you want to see guys get hit in the intermediate and the short, right? In the now screen portion of your offense. Like spreading that, it's not just about spreading the ball around, it's about differing the quality of repetition for your players, whether it's forcing them to, right, like move quite a bit without the ball, where they're not moving very much at all and just getting an opportunity with the rock. Um, it's those kind of things. It's like how many times I gotta sit here and talk about like motioning and not running to motion, like
Yeah.
running to motion, creating an imbalance and then not running that direction. Like it just doesn't pass any logic. It almost feels like what the Colts decided to do is they decided to say, all right, we're gonna run this style of offense, and what we're gonna start the season doing are the lowest percentage plays that so that we can destroy any semblance of a
Yeah.
team defending us,
Yeah.
because all season long what we did was we started out in 2 by 2, we motioned to 3 by 1, and we went away from that all season long. And so all season long teams are so used to saying they're just looking for a 2-on-1 to the weak side, and they've been going at that all year long.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they start going to the three receiver side more often and throwing the ball in the short and intermediate and long route. Like you'd think that was going to happen, but I just don't think that's going to happen. I haven't seen anything that leads me to believe that the Colts are like serious about developing
Able.
Sam
Yeah.
Ellinger, for example. After a pretty good week one, I might add. We didn't get to make a podcast. Life happened.
Yeah,
My
but he
power
was.
went
Yeah,
out, for example,
He
but like he
was.
had a good week one. He had a good
Yeah, he had a
first
good
start.
week one. Yeah. Just clearly, when you're thinking about who do you blame for these past 2 weeks, Sam Ellinger is really low on the list. Like,
No, he's slow.
I don't think
But it
people are
wasn't Matt
blaming
Ryan
him.
either, right?
Nah, yeah, Matt Ryan also really low on the list. Not
Mm,
not his blame at all. I mean, in my opinion, it starts from the higher ups first to begin with.
yeah,
Starts with Chris Ballard, starts with Frank Reich.
yeah.
Then you go down, Marcus Brady, Chris Strausser, the coaches, and then the players. Because the only player that I can particularly think like, okay, he's been really terrible is Matt Pryor, and he has no business being in the team right now.
Yeah.
He clearly shouldn't be playing. We are seeing this time again. I mean, it reached the point where we are literally saying like we'd be better off, lining up. A comment was said today on the Discord chat, like a gust of wind would be better right guard than Matt Pryor. He
I was
just,
gonna say a strong gust of wind knocked the power
yeah,
out in my
strong gust
house
of
for more
wind.
than 24 hours. So at least it had
So
some effect, right?
yeah,
Where
Pryor is just like having nothing there, and just why is he still playing? Because it's been this way week after week after week after week, and seeing no
yeah,
improvement whatsoever. Like it's not like you could say, okay, he's a young guy, he's a rookie, he's still learning, he has the potential, he has the physique, he has the build to
yeah.
be great. Where you're like, okay, I can say for example Bernard Raymond,
Hmm.
he's been playing football for what, like 2 3 years in
Yeah,
college. So you're like, okay, I can deal with this level of incompetence from you because you're inexperienced, you are learning the game. It's fair to for you to be struggling, but not a guy like Matt Pryor. Like that's just inexcusable. And for
yeah.
him to still be the star, you're just like, are you watching the game today? I was thinking like, are we purposely tanking right now? Like,
Like,
could it be that we turn the
is
corner?
this what
Yeah.
this looks like?
Are we
Um,
really like, are we tanking right now? And I was like, okay, certainly seems like it from the way the offense has been playing
yeah.
and the way Frank coached the game. It was like, you are trying to be a head coach. Like, did you see any semblance of creativity from Frank today? I did not see. It was just like run up the gut, and call a
And
crossing
then
play. Like,
not go out of your way to provide just enough protection to let your brand new quarterback, just try to throw to the sticks. Like there was many third down opportunities. When you go back, look how short of the sticks they were. They're inside 10 yards from that, and they couldn't even manage a throw to the sticks to give themselves like a that is a reasonable attempt to gain a first down. I'd argue, right? Third and
Yeah.
seven, and I call so you asked, you get. It's third and seven. My offense has struggled, and I know that what's important is getting my quarterback going. So I need to pick up a first down, and I think, well, I love the spread. So does Ohio State, and their offense is really good every year. So sue me. Okay. I love the spread. I like all hitches deep. So I'm going to tell them run them a couple yards deeper, right? Because it's seven. I generally am going to tell my guys to turn around at 6 yards, right? So we're going to call sixes hitches, sixes deep, right? So they know that those 6 yard hitches are now 8 yard hitches. He's going to turn around, and I'm going to tell my quarterback, the way I coach my quarterbacks, is that you're just looking at coverage and alignment. Whichever who has the poorest alignment, and you're going to kind of rank them in order for you snap. And you only get like a few seconds to figure it out, but generally it's who's covered the poorest. Oh, okay, they're
Yeah.
giving up 9 yards on the outside, and I'm in the middle of the field. I'm a lefty. So guess what? I'm throwing to my left most of the time. But as I get the ball and I drop back I'm trying to look at both outside guys because these are the guys I want to hit because the cornerbacks are 9 yards off them. They're running 8 yard hitches. They're both going to be open. I'm trying to figure out who's going to be the most open. And then once you hit your third step, the ball's out of your hand. You already knew where you were going before the ball was snapped. All you had to do is get a little visual confirmation that ball's
Yeah.
out of your fucking hand at the top of your drop. But here's a problem. Not only not only did Sam Ellinger not get enough time to make that happen, and what I would argue is what I said was very no, I think entry level spread play calling third down, right? Deep hitches? Sure. Like you know what I mean? Like that's very pretty
Yes.
basic.
Yeah.
That's
Not
pretty. I
complicated.
didn't
Yeah.
ask a lot. I didn't run comebacks, which I think is too much for third and seven, right? I just said, man, like a deep pitches, just try to hit somebody that's open, right? Um, they couldn't even provide enough protection, even manufacture enough protection to let him get to a spot where he could just throw like a deeper hitch. And that's cased in point by looking at the throw to Pittman on the third down. He was short and still covered and there was two or three defenders right in the area, and it was just
Yeah.
like, yeah, he
And
comes
he's
down with it,
through.
and he's eating somebody's lunch, right? So it's better for him to drop it, right? But I get that feeling when a team has outings like this, that, for example, the benching of Matt Ryan clearly did not go over well.
Yeah.
Um, team amidst 0 for 3, offensive coordinator gets fired, starting quarterbacks gets benched for the season. Sam Ellinger is named the starter for the rest of the season, much to the surprise of many of the players, particularly like offensive linemen. Particularly like I'm thinking about Ryan Kelly's quote coming out like, yeah, it shocked the hell out
Yeah.
of
He
me.
said it himself. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think um, the more we talk about it, the more assured of it I am. Like, I think they all know, like, they'll be in the league longer than Frank Reich will be their coach here. And a lot of those guys have just realized like it's not worth like think about like Darius Leonard and Jonathan Taylor and like how little involved they've been this year. And then you wonder like are those guys likely to get another season after basically not being here? Are you going to move on from them, right? Or is it
Yeah.
known now? I wouldn't necessarily say like blow it up, but there's like some guys that you're like how many weeks are you going to let them stand on the sideline?
Yeah.
Um, and I get it, injuries are a thing, and you don't get a pick when they're ready and all that shit. I'm not trying to be a jerk to nobody. It's not what the fuck I'm saying. But like, if you know what I mean, if they want to be out there and they wanted to win, I hate to say it, they just be out there playing. Um, but I hate to call it like a lost season because these guys still got like you got 8 games left. You know,
Yeah. It's still, yeah, but it's, taking into account the way we've been playing and the remaining schedule, I think, of course, it might seem obvious right now, but the playoffs are out of the question, especially after
Yeah,
today. And, you're like, okay, I believe that the main objective for the Colts right now would be to see what you got,
yeah,
give Ellinger a decent chance to show, you got 8 games to show if you can be the starting quarterback or not. You can give Michael Pittman the chance to, okay, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, all those young guys you have, you have to like tell them, okay, show me what you got. You know, Frank Reich, at this point, he has to be thinking like, okay, I'm out of the team after this year. I don't think he's playing on. I think that a fresh start could be best for both parties, even for him too.
sure.
Perhaps in my opinion, he can't be a head coach in the NFL. He's better
No,
served as an offensive coordinator. Offensive coordinator, he might be just fine. We're like, okay, he can be a high quality offensive coordinator,
yeah,
but not a head coach, and definitely not leading your football team right now. I don't want a guy like that. I want a guy. The two guys I mentioned on the Discord chat, were Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinators of the Bills,
hmm,
and the other one was D'Amico Ryans, who is the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. Those are two guys where I would be like, these are guys that I think would be immediate upgrades or Frank Reich. And these are two guys that are, not afraid to get in the face of play. Frank Reich, always making those vanilla excuses and not saying like he just seems like a vanilla head coach to me, if you ask me. And I listen
he,
to his
like I said, he's not as in tune with the
yeah.
X's and O's and what the modern game.
Yeah,
This
he
game's
just
different. You know what part, part of the problem with the Colts offensive line is more endemic. It's more like the NFL is shocked that the defensive side, the defensive fronts, they're just trying to be as lean and as fast as possible. There, if you think about what's prevalent along defensive lines, are like outstanding athletes are the disruptive ones. It's not big boys, your Warren Sapps, your Fletcher Cox. Fletcher Cox hurt. Warren Sapp's
yeah.
long gone, baby. It's all speed on the outside. It's all pass rush, speed rushing. And the thing that obviously the Colts pass rush pass rush leaves a lot to be desired. But again, it's hard to pass rush effectively when your offense gives up 9 sacks
Yeah.
and is punting the shit out of the ball. And like I said, as much as you said, like it's a see what they got. There's a lot of young players for the Colts that are going to be here anyway. And if I and like I said, I'm not like a mutiny on Frank Reich kind of person. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just like I said, I think it's that hard knock shit stuck with me because I was like, how do you win a Super Bowl if your quarterback and head coach are trading Bible verses
Yeah.
and not having deep conversations about coverage and how they're not, you know what I mean, and how that pairing wasn't leading the league in offensive efficiency. You know what I mean? Like we could talk about our faith in when we're winning Super Bowls, but when
Yeah.
we
Not.
when we're
Yeah.
we're not making the playoffs, right? And I think, like I said, I think Frank vouched hard for Carson Wentz, and they bought him, and it didn't pan out. And then and fortunately, they got value for him going to the Washington, and
Yeah.
now, fortunately for the Colts, they benched Matt Ryan before he got seriously injured, um, because he was getting hit way too much.
Yeah.
Uh,
Way too much.
and
Yeah.
I
No
think
way he.
hopefully for the Colts, they'll manufacture some offense around the skill set that Sam Ellinger has. Sam Ellinger reminds me, by the way, stylistically of what he's like capable of. To like a Marcus Mariota. Obviously, he's not the same like build, but like he's athletic enough, and
Yeah.
that
He
like
can be. Yeah.
throwing on the run is like in his wheelhouse. That's something he's like good at. Um, and that you could I felt like they had the right kind of game plan last week, but again, like they went through a change. They fired somebody. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
I think the offense was going to be bad. Um, and you just hope they get Jonathan Taylor back. And I seen Quentin Nelson said something after the game about there has to be a sense of urgency and it has to be a building wide thing and everybody's got to be, but it's like, where's
Yeah.
that? Where's that ahead of this 3 game loss? Where was
Yeah,
this sense of urgency before this abject failure?
when you were basically in a good position to,
Yep.
to even make the playoff, to perhaps win, you were 3-2-1. You were
Yeah.
in a good position to be in. You know, you had a decent shot at making the playoff, and you went ahead, and you battled the game against the Titans, and you sucked against the Titans, you sucked against the Commanders, and you sucked against the right now against the Patriots. So you're like, when was why was there not a sense of urgency right there?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You're saying it after you lose all 3 of those games. Hey, the offensive line's played real bad. We got to get it fixed. There has to be a sense of urgency. It has to be across organization wide. I think they're just going to keep trading blame. I think it's like we said. I think Frank Reich's out after this year. I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Ballard follows. It was something that I'm going to be thinking about. The Colts play the Philadelphia Eagles in 2 weeks, and they're going to get
Yeah,
their shit handed to them and that's a former Colts coach in Sirianni, right?
yeah, the former offensive coordinator.
Yeah, is looking like $1 million coaching the Eagles who are currently undefeated. Um, so yeah, I think that obviously the Colts of winnable games, they get one next week in Las Vegas. They play at 4:05. They play the Las Vegas Raiders. If they've got a winnable game left on their schedule, that it's like, yeah, I could see them like winning that game outside of the Texans at the end of the year. There's a real possibility the Colts win 5 or less games this year.
Yeah, yeah, very decent chance.
Because here's the reality of the situation. If you want to, before we close this out, if you want my realistic expectation here, again, if the Colts are going to win a game the remainder of the season, it's this upcoming week against the Raiders. Okay. This doesn't change how I feel. I think that the Steelers are a good team. Mike Tomlin's a good coach, and that I nothing amazing would have to happen. You could definitely lose that football game to a good head coach, even though it's at home. Now, do I think the Colts win? Yeah, they could. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're going to win one remaining, again, I think you're losing to the Eagles in 2 weeks. I said that, so that's why I skipped them. But like, you could win next week. You're definitely losing to the Eagles at home. And then you get the Steelers. That's a 50-50 ball. At
Yeah,
Dallas, I think you're losing. At the Vikings, I think you're losing. Hosting the Chargers, I think you're losing. And you could very, very, very easily lose to even the New York Giants.
yeah,
You very easily
yeah,
lose to the Giants. And then you might catch the Texans at home to close your season out. That's it. At this point, based on the offensive line play, there are only teams that you could realistically expect the Colts will beat are teams that are either just don't have an experienced quarterback, the Steelers, or have shown to be bad football teams like the Raiders. The Raiders and Texans shown to be bad football
yeah,
teams. The Raiders notably have been ahead by 17 points and lost each
yeah.
of the
In the
last
past
two
two
games.
games, yeah,
Yeah. So that's why I say it that way. If there's games remaining on the schedule the Colts could win, it's obviously
it's
on the
against
road
the
against the
Raiders,
hapless. Hapless is like a good term. Hapless Raiders. Um, then you
Texans,
then the Texans at the end of the year, maybe the Steelers because they've got Pickett at
and
quarterback,
maybe the Giants.
and maybe the Giants. That's four games. They've only got 3 wins, so that's like 7-10.
Yeah,
And
so you're like, yeah, and you're basically, out of the playoffs, of course, and picking in the, 10 to 15 range.
yeah, yep.
So
And I think a lot of people are going to start asking about how do you guys feel about this upcoming quarterback class? There's a lot to be excited about. The future is bright. I don't think that getting the number 1 pick is the idea. I think that You pick where your team falls. I think the best way to do it is to go out of your way to win as many games as you can. Pick where you may, and you just got to get it right. You got to get your pick right. Doesn't matter where you pick, you just got to get your pick right. And that's got to be your focus because the reality of the situation is I'll never believe it's worth trading up. You can't make me believe that. Show me a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Show me a perennial Super Bowl winner that traded up to get their guy. But, oh, there's
There
not
are, I
one?
haven't,
Oh, there aren't
yeah,
one. That's crazy. So like I said, like I think you got to nail your projection. You have to I like that the Colts draft off the Senior Bowl because I think if you're going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, I think that you have to have your eyes on the Senior Bowl. And keep in mind, I'm going to coach the high school level. I want to be a high school
yeah,
coach. I don't want to coach the NFL level. I want to create Hall of Famers. But the way you do that is you take away exercise as a punishment and you turn it and it's a gift you give yourself and you teach the kids like you want to be an athlete because it's a gift that keeps giving back, right? And then begin to play sports professionally and shit. That's like the fun part, right? Getting to pay to play like
yeah,
football and shit, right? But you gotta love being an athlete. And in order to be an athlete, you gotta get good grades, right? Because you gotta be smart. You gotta stay on the cutting edge of how to be like the best athlete you can be and shit. And you gotta be willing to play any position, right? So you can already tell, like I'm
yeah,
creating fucking monsters. Just wait. They'll play any position, right? And you also gotta be decisive and confident, and you gotta know where you're going, right? And then obviously when it comes to the league, you gotta understand it's a business. And it's just like any other job. You have to just show up every day with a smile on your face and do exactly what is asked of you because they're going to move you if you don't. And you don't want to get into a position where you're just constantly moving gig to gig
yeah,
because it's a you thing. That's why, like I said it the way I said it. Marcus Brady and Naheem Hines, they're not scapegoats. They spoke out. They're the exact kind of people that in a room full of people would snap. What the fuck are we doing? What is this shit? Look at this film. Look at this offense. Look at the quality of
yeah.
touches. That it's not just about it couldn't have been Naheem Hines being it's about me, 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 me. It couldn't have been that. Couldn't have been that. They'd have called him out. Somebody just said it. Yeah, man, Naheem Hines was a dick and like super selfish in a meeting, and that's why he got traded. Nobody's saying
Yeah.
that. They're not. What he said was, this sucks. And Marcus Brady was like, my hands are fucking tied because I got him he's the head coach and he ultimately decides. This is just how Jared sees this.
It's just how it goes. Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's what happened, but like it's very much how I'm like, I think the reason that you trade Naheem Hines is because you don't want to handle him being outspoken outside of the organization
Yeah.
amidst a losing season.
Yeah. That's a bad look.
That's why you got rid of him. Let him go be somewhere else. They'll win and he'll be happy and quiet because we don't want him speaking out against his experience with the Indianapolis Colts. But I can promise you, I'm one of those people I like to read body language and facial expression. Naeem Hines hasn't been happy in a while. He wasn't happy for a long time here. And it's exactly what I'm saying. It's not that he wasn't getting the ball. It's like they were giving him the ball and being like, I hope you fail. Does that make sense? Like, I think
Yeah.
that he showed a unique value, and the Colts. I could say the exact same thing about Shaq Leonard. So don't get me started. But they have the same unique value in that you can't really put a pin on it. You can't. He is not really a outside linebacker, is he? He's more like a middle linebacker,
Yeah.
and he just closes insanely fast. That's what he really is. He's a middle linebacker that closes insanely fast. So you play him outside, he's crossing the field, beating everybody to the ball. That's Shaq Leonard healthy, right? And Naheem Hines, he's not really an inside runner. And coaches don't like it because they act like that's a bad thing. But you just needed to use him better. And when you did, you could not manufacture quality repetitions for the kid. And then when he comes, he and scores a touchdown his first week back. Think about
Yeah.
that too. Yeah, hell yeah, he's out the door. Are you kidding? right? Like, think about it. He was injured, doesn't play, comes back the next week, scores a touchdown, and they trade him. Hell yes, he spoke out. He said, something's wrong here. You
Yeah, I
know,
need to, yeah,
Sirianni left, and all of a sudden we're inept on offense. It's like you asked me, have you seen any creativity? Hell no. I've seen a base offense. The worst part of it is, again, it's like every week I'm like, if I was to list out, they run the little bunch right single back, right? Bunch right single back. And if you think about the list of plays that you were going to run out of bunch right single back, do you know how many of them are hand the ball off weak side? Do you know where the weak side handoff is on that fucking chart for me? All the way at the goddamn bottom with 2 asterisks on it, like run this shit fucking
yeah,
last. And when we're doing that, and I'm like, whoa, that was like on first down. Like they went bunch right, handoff, weak sided. Like the quarterback just turned to his left and handed it off. Did the running back line up on the wrong side? Because that makes sense, right? But if the running back had lined up towards the bunch side and then you hand it off, that kind of makes sense. So, but if he lines up on the wrong side, you give it to him anyway.
yeah,
Fuck you. That's not football. So, like I said, I think that's Frank Reich. And I think it's this team. I think it's when your head coach isn't good enough and your analytics department is their hair's on fire, right? So they're sending you trend reports and all this shit, and you're just not capable of reading this data. They're trying to tell you what not to fucking do. And he's out there like, this is what we're gonna do. Hey, and they're sending the play out to Sam, and it's like they're instead of giving him like the good plays that work and shit, it's like they're giving them the play. And when you watch it, you'll see what I'm saying. Like, think about of all the things that you would have done, right? For example, spread with the jet sweep motion
yeah,
and never hand it off. So again, I'd ask you if you were to list out all the things that you do off of spread with the jet sweep motion. I'm just asking, and maybe it's just funny. Where the fuck is the jet sweep at on that list for you? I just want to know. Because for me, it's like top 3. It's
yeah,
like, yeah, we're running the jet fucking sweep. I'm trying to manufacture touches,
yeah, to your
ranging in
playmakers.
quality, trying to spring something open. I'm handing that rock. How many jet sweeps have the Colts run? Ask
Yeah,
yourself.
none today.
Nine
And it
game,
worked.
9
And it
games.
worked. Yeah, and it worked last week, against the Commanders. They ran the jet sweep to Paris Campbell, I believe,
Mhm.
once. It went for over 25 yards. So it's like this shit's been working. But yeah, no, just
But yeah, so it is super frustrating as somebody that aspires to be a coach, where I actually feel like if you think about it, if you're playing offense and you have this quality of weapons, you're just looking to manufacture quality touches for these players, and you're trying to get the ball out of the quarterback's hand quick. And that would just be what I'd predicate my offense on, knowing that like I can't rely on my offensive line. Right. So for me, it takes a lot of the slower plays to develop out of my playbook. And my offense looks a lot more up tempo. We were relying a little more conditioning, right? Why? Because I can't rely on my offensive line. It's not stout. They're not stout.
yeah,
They're not. So I have to beat the opponent because we're smarter than them and because we're in better conditioning and shit like that. And I get it. People are like, oh, Jared, it's NFL football. You can't do that. Bullshit. Tom Brady asked, what was the difference between all those teams that you're on that won Super Bowls and even just the teams that made it to the Super Bowl and lost? What was the difference? And Tom Brady goes, we conditioned. Those teams that won the Super Bowl, we conditioned after practice. We like worked our asses off after every practice. And he sat there and he's like, I never thought about that just now until you just asked. This was this past off season. So when people out there say like, oh, they're all the same, none of this is any different. No, once these guys get to a certain level and you get paid, then you realize how valuable you are and how valuable your health is, your mental health, your physical
yeah,
health, your brain. And you start to think about what would happen if you just quit playing football right the fuck now. Because now you have this like asshole load of money, right? And I could
yeah,
just retire and be on a beach somewhere and it's tugging at you every week. And it's tugging at the love you have for the game. And when you're on a bad football team where you can't protect the quarterback. And if you think about it, like Andrew Luck leaving the Colts has had a effect, like a ripple effect on the Colts, where
Yeah,
like
on the team.
other
Yeah.
guys are not afraid to walk away, where other guys are willing to talk about having mental health problems. Like if you really think about what has happened, and I hate to be this way, but I'm a football fan first, Colts fan second. It's David Carr that set this all in motion. The Houston Texans took David Carr and failed to protect him until he broke his fucking back. And that for
Yeah.
me was the big signal of the NFL is going to have problems when you draft a great drop back passer, but you can't protect him. You're going to have a problem. You're going to lose football games. You're going to lose a lot of football games. And especially add to that the league's changing. The league is changing. This is a fast game now. You know, I was thinking about I want to go be a high school football, basketball, track and field coach. Why? I also want to run an athletic club. Why? Because I want to pull people into football that wouldn't normally play football and to try to help my team, right? That's wise, right? That guy,
Yeah.
your great kicker might be a soccer player, right? But I'm backed up, like I'm invigorated by look at the University of Georgia. #1 ranked football
Yeah.
program. Just took down to #1 ranked Tennessee. World-class track and field at the collegiate level. And you think about what's pushing your football players and you think about why what do you talk about, Jared? Well, Georgia State track and field is like a big damn deal. And then you feed into the University of Georgia. Well, all those kids that are running track in high school in Georgia
Yeah.
are football players. So raising the ceiling, raising the floor of the football player in Georgia. And then those kids, Georgia primarily recruits in state. So because of the strength of track and field at the high school level, at Georgia State high school level, it's feeding into Georgia Tech. It just beat
Yeah.
Clemson, right? Georgia just beat #1 Tennessee. Why? Because if you're going to be the best football player, you have to be the best athlete too, right? And for a lot of kids at a lot of programs, it's not that way, particularly offensive linemen. So a lot of it is that offensive linemen are always looking to maintain and gain muscle mass and get big as fuck and be strong. So one punch man, right? Well,
Yeah.
the guy on the opposite side of the ball isn't training like that. Do you see now why the Colts offensive line's having a problem? Is because the Colts offensive line are these big hulking men that like if they were to reach out and get a punch on you, it'd probably knock most of you out,
Yeah.
right?
But they
But
can't. Yeah.
but the other guy on the other side is learning Jeet Kune Do. You know what I mean? Like he's hand fighting you and getting a clean shot on your quarterback 9 times today. And I think I think it has a lot more to do with like the failure to develop offensive linemen. So that falls on Chris Strausser, right? But like the game is also moving fast. Like the linemen need to be better athletes, is what I'm hinting
Yeah.
at. And you know, when you talk about like a Bernard Raymond, like one of the things he did today, he gave up a sack, is that he turned his body, but his hips didn't move. It's like he had a rod down the middle of his back,
Yeah.
and he was kind of going like this, and the guy went right by him. And it's like I see that on 2K with a computer, right, where it wasn't assessing your speed, and so it ends up watching you as you go around them. I saw that today, and it was like, hey, we were talking about when he was drafted how he's a great athlete, right? But clearly there's a learning curve
Yeah.
to
There needs.
this.
Yeah. Of course.
So these are lumps you're gonna take because you know it's like we were talking about in a Slack chat today about not Slack chat in a
Discord.
Discord
Yeah.
about um oh we're talking about Bernard Raymond and talking about like the lumps he's gonna take in the offensive line and shit, and like you got to be prepared for that shit. But if you don't have a left tackle, right, how hard it is to do anything consistently. I think it was left tackle, quarterback, and what I can't remember the third position that was like vitally important. You got to have these three things in order.
Yes,
Left tackle,
probably.
quarterback, centers. I don't know. But like I said, left tackle was like one of the most important positions,
Yeah,
and so far it's between a guy we can't figure out why he's on the team and a rookie, right? That's an athletic specimen, right? So obviously your offense is going to struggle either way there, and you don't have anyone. It's not like you're missing offensive linemen. Again, it's like we started out saying, it's not like the Colts are injured.
yeah, it's not, yeah,
It's that the offensive line regressed and they're bad. And any team with any semblance of a game plan is going to give you a hell of a ride. So yeah, let's get out of here, man. Rough game. I
yeah,
appreciate your time.
definitely, yeah,
Trying to keep positive thoughts. Again, one of the things I always want to say is like, you never get too wrapped up in an outcome you didn't have a hand in.
yeah,
And so I have a lot of people that uh, frequently will ask me like, how do you stay like happy as an individual, even though the Colts are, well, I'm not an employee.
yeah. You're not, yeah,
I'm not helping that team prepare, and ultimately that loss is on my resume. I feel a lot different if my, you know what I mean, if that had some impact on my resume.
yeah,
Um, and instead, and like I said, I don't like sitting here talking about people losing their jobs neither. But again, I crave somebody that's like an X's and O's king that's like friends with Pat McAfee. You know what I mean? Like if you think about what you want to see in the NFL, you know what I mean? When the most powerful man in media likes the WWE and shit, you need an NFL GM and coach that are cool with Pat McAfee coaching the Indianapolis Colts and like on them often, giving them the good shit, having a better relationship than like Aaron fucking Rodgers and Nick Sirianni. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
we need that. You know what I mean? And I think it was telling to me when Carson Wentz comes here and he doesn't fall immediately in with that crowd. That was telling to me, right? And then it's like you said, Chris Ballard was a little cocky. Yeah, he was a little cocky
yeah,
to Pat McAfee, and then haven't heard a word from him since.
yeah. He's
And
been
it's
quiet.
and the same thing, and I'm thinking about the same thing with Frank Reich, not even been around Pat McAfee hardly at all. And it makes me think about like, man, he's really powerful. I would want to be in his good graces because I like him, but also because he's powerful. He's a powerful media figure in Indianapolis. Like I get it, I'm rambling at this point, but like you know what I'm saying? Like that tells me you won't be
Yeah,
around long. It's like you're not caught up with the game. You know what I mean? That was my head's at anyway. Because like I said, I just hate to talk about fire them. You know what I mean? Because everybody's saying it.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like fuck, like talk about something else. You know. But anyway, um, this has been the Cultist, episode 41, or yeah, episode 41, the Antoine Bethea episode. So enjoy the rest of the games this week. Have a great week. We'll talk to you after this Raiders
yeah,
game. You know what I mean? See what's up.
yeah.